you go to an old, abandoned house, you'll probably find some rotten wood, some broken glass, probably some squirrels or raccoons, but you might also find some treasures. You could find some jewelry, some silver dishes, probably some clothes and shoes, or you might find some old books. You know those things were all valuable to someone at some time. Who knows? They could have even been someone's most prized possessions. But after time, the jewelry rusted, the silver dishes tarnished, the clothes were eaten by moths, and the books yellowed and spoiled by time. Matthew 6:20-21 says, "But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." That means that instead of taking pleasure in material things, you should take pleasure in the things that will last for eternity. Luke 16:19-31 talks about a man named Lazarus, who was poor and who had nothing, and a rich man who had everything. It says, "There was a rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen, who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate was laid a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who desired to be fed with what fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, even dogs came and licked his sores." The poor man died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried, and in Hades, being in torment, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham far off, and Lazarus at his side. And he called out, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus to dip the end of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in anguish in this flame." But Abraham said, "Child, remember that you in your lifetime received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in anguish." Lazarus didn't exactly have nothing. He had God and his eternity in heaven, which in my opinion is a lot better than purple and fine linen. The rich man, however, who was said to have everything, was actually missing the most important thing. He didn't have God, and that meant he didn't have an eternity in heaven. That passage shows us that material things do us no good in the long run. A lot of times, we can start to care so much about phones and TV and social media that we lose sight of what's important. Instead of caring about things like that, we should care about learning more about God and telling people about Him. Sometimes money can start to take over our lives, and we forget that Jesus should be the only thing that's doing that. Judas betrayed Jesus by selling him for 30 pieces of silver and ended up committing suicide. The prodigal son had demanded his father give him his inheritance, and when he did, he ended up eating with pigs. The rich man went to torment. Ananias and Sapphira kept money for themselves and were struck dead. And many people today are taken over by money and material things. We should be like Mary, who anointed Jesus' feet with her expensive perfume, and be happy to give it all up for God. Everyone wants something. You might want the latest iPhone or iPad or the newest John Green book. But one way or another, we all want something. There is a mansion in Asheville, North Carolina called the Biltmore. It is on 8,000 acres of land and is the largest private house in the U.S. Its construction was started in 1889 and finished in 1895, and was built by a man named George Washington Vanderbilt and his workers. It took 6 years to build, and after it was built, he lived in it for only a little while until he suddenly died from complications after appendix surgery. The point of this story is to show that even though he built a beautiful house and accomplished his goal, it didn't do him much good. He only got to live in it for a short while, and after his death, he couldn't take his house with him. It still sits there today. So from a spiritual perspective, the only thing building the house did was take up the time he could have been using for better things like spending time with his family or spending time with God. Sometimes it seems like losing our material things could be the worst thing that could happen to us. It seems like without our clothes and our phones, we couldn't live and our lives would be over. But depending on things like that isn't good. Those things won't help you get to heaven. Even if you don't have a lot of money or a phone or the best clothes, you can still have a happy life and get to heaven. Lazarus didn't have a lot of money, and neither did the widow, but they are in heaven now, and they are walking on streets of gold. You don't need to be rich to have it all. God will take care of you. Philippians 4:19 says, "And my God will meet all of your needs according to the riches of His glory in Christ Jesus." Instead of laying up jewelry or fine linens or houses, lay it for yourselves the things you can take with you to heaven. Thank you.